There is new information at this hour on the investigation into two military helicopters that crashed in the California desert, killing 7 Marines during training exercises. We've learned that 6 of the Marines are from Camp Pendleton and 1 Marine killed was from Yuma, Arizona. The service members are with the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing. They were participating in night training exercises in the California desert. It was around 8 o'clock last night when the 2 helicopters collided. 5 of the Marines were in a UH-1 Huey utility helicopter. You see a picture on your screen. Hueys are considered to be the most widely used helicopters in the world, with a variety of capabilities, including gunships. They're used as that for medevac, also to transport personnel, military personnel, and also material. There were 2 crew members in the AH-1W Cobra. The Cobra is an attack helicopter. There's a picture on your screen. The attack helicopter carries a pilot and a gunnery. Now, the area of the crash is the Chocolate Mountains. It's a 500,000-acre restricted military area. It's just east of the Salton Sea. It's a remote part also of the Yuma Training Range complex. It's used for aerial gunnery and also aerial bomb training. And the military trains there because it's hot and it's mountainous. It's very rugged, much like Iraq and Afghanistan. Once again, as the investigation continues into the cause of the crash, the names of the Marines who were killed, 7 Marines, is yet to be released. Usually, David and Alexis, they wait at least 24 hours, family notification, before releasing those names.
All right, and of course, it'll be a long time before the military will be able to explain this to us as well. Thank you, Bridget. Joining us right now is Congressman Bilbray. He is in the studios to react to this as well.
Well, I think it's a reminder to all of us that the men and women that are serving our country are not just in danger when they're overseas fighting a war. The training is very, very dangerous because they are working at, have to work the limits. They've got equipment that is at the limits of technology's ability. These are not your car that drives around. These are very high tech. They're driving in the dark. They've got hoods on for night vision. You have here the Huey and the Apache. The Apache travels about 50 miles an hour faster, so even if they were traveling the same direction, there's a possibility the attack copter could go actually right over the top of the other copter. So all of these things are a reminder. Something that in San Diego we see again and again. I remember as a young man in the 60s going out to check out the surf in Imperial Beach and hearing the helicopter crash, and 5 sailors were killed back then. And so this is one of those things that we hear again and again, and this is part about being a Navy town and a military town.
And we know that the training exercises are so crucial to make sure things go right when you are not at home. But is there anything that can be done to prevent the training exercise accident?
Well, sadly, we've just got to remember as civilians that this is part of being the military. There was actually Stonewall Jackson always said, "I'd rather lose 1 man in March than 3 in battle." And so it sounds terrible, and the family's going to see this, but the training is important, and the training has to be cutting edge. And when you get to that edge, you're going to have this. But it does, statistically, is proven that over the long run, this type of tough training that may cost a life now and then may save hundreds, if not thousands, of lives when we have to go into harm's way. So I don't think you would ask the men and women would ask it to be any other way. But sadly, it's a reality that we take for granted, and I hope we don't take for granted when we see men and women in uniform understand this is not something, a threat of getting killed is not something that they just face when they're overseas. Every day that they train, there's a risk that this can happen.
And moving beyond this accident, we talk about these dedicated men and women. Tonight, you have an academy dinner. There's some of these very young people headed out to
new generation coming up. I wish the greatest generation could meet their grandchildren, which I think is going to be the greater generation in so many ways. We have 45 candidates that are being nominated. My office is nominating for the military academies, and these men and women, these young people are just absolutely stellar. I mean, I'll tell you something. I think that America can be proud of not only those who are in uniform now, but the men and women and the young adults who are offering to serve their country and their qualifications to go to the academy. So we're going to be at Miramar this evening, have a dinner to celebrate their future. and the fact that we still have great Americans coming up out of high school ready to serve their nation and serve the future of the world.
Boy, we sure do, don't we? Hey, before we let you go, we want to talk about another issue, which is the cruise ships here in San Diego.
Well, it's one of those things. The cruise ship industry has a real problem. The violence at the border is now scaring people away from coming to San Diego. And frankly, the challenge is the Port District has come to me and said, look, Brian, you originally carried the bill that brought the cruise ships in. Well, can you get together and work with like Nancy Pelosi, like we did on the America's Cup, to keep bringing it in, to be able to save the cruise ships? So we're going to be working with Democrats up and down the coast, with Republicans up and down the coast, to allow the cruise ships over an emergency period to be able to go north up to Seattle instead of having to always go south until the violence settles down. These are one of those things that we've got to do to save jobs and kind of reflect the reality that the border violence, that 50,000 people have been killed in 5 years, is affecting jobs and affecting our security, and Washington needs to address that specifically. So hopefully we'll get everybody working together like we did at the America's Cup and save the cruise ship industry. It's a big employer in the port area, so hopefully we'll get that together.
Certainly the attraction going north won't be quite the attraction of going down to the Mexican Riviera, but it's something.
Yeah, it's something, and it's a little different. It'll be something that'll be between the Mexico and the Alaskan line, but you still have places like Avalon, you still have places like Monterey. It'll be a different type, but we've got to be willing to change the federal government regulations to make it legal for people to create jobs. And here's a place where we've got a government regulation, the Jones Act, stopping the cruise ships from even being able to operate this operation and provide those jobs, which are major jobs for our port facilities up and down. Right now is not a time for the federal government regulation to be forcing these jobs overseas. We ought to be keeping them here, and this is where Washington needs to change our regulations to allow the private sector to maintain and create the jobs that everybody talks about, but not enough of us are taking action on.
Congressman Brian Bilbray, thank you so much for stopping by this morning. A pleasure as always.
Always a pleasure.
Great
to be home. Great to see the weather. Oh God,
yeah,
next week I got to go back to. They're going to put me to work. I don't get to surf right now, but we're going to get together. We're going to do some surfing. I'm going to get Dave out.
Oh no, you're not.
Come on, Dave. Listen.
Tom Jordan's going with you. It's not going to be me.
Well, we'll see. The water is cold right now, about 58 degrees.
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right.